It's Dylan's KC Barbecue at 4 Valley locations. Our sports bar in Arrowhead is packed with TVs for the ultimate sports fan. Our Wildlife World Zoo location will have you on the edge of your seat, dining right next to our 60,000-gallon shark tank. Dylan's Bayou at Pleasant Harbor has never-ending sunsets, beautiful people, and live music every weekend. And our newest location, Western Trails Ranch, is 12 acres of rodeo fun and live outdoor concerts for the entire family. It's Dylan's KC Barbecue, where we're elite, unique, and memorable.
This puppet show stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh, God.
Welcome to the She's So Right Show on 960 AM The Patriot. Meet your hosts, Lindsey Graham, labeled the Patriot Barbie by the leftist mob, who was one of the first Americans to defy lockdowns and open her business. After finding how tyrannical government can be when disobeyed, she became a proud advocate for freedoms and conservative values. Her new book, Targeted, shows readers how glorious life is when you stand up for what you believe in and God rewards you. Brandy Barclay is a powerful Christian voice on Faith Talk Radio, the founder of Power Soul, and a Christian life coach. Brandy, like many Americans, has seen political division terrorize this nation and wants to reinforce traditional values. And now, guys, get ready to say it more than you're used to. She's So Right with Brandy Barclay and Lindsey Graham.
Hey guys, welcome to the She's So Right show. We have such a fantastic guest today. I'm so excited about Siaka. This is a crazy story. As you guys know, faith plays a huge role in Brandy and I's life, and I actually met Siaka over a year ago. He was speaking in Huntington Beach, California at a Trump rally, and this is the best story before I get Siaka on. I was in line to speak, and I had my speech printed out. This was my first ever speaking rally, and I was going to read off this piece of paper, and this guy gets up in front of me, and he is speaking with so much power and so much conviction and so much depth. He's like spitting. He's so impassioned in his speech. And I looked at my stupid piece of paper and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the loser that's up there reading off a piece of paper. I can't do it. So I had to pray in faith that God would give me the right words. And because of this man in front of me speaking so passionately, I ripped up my paper and I got up on that stage. It was a box. And I spoke from the heart, and everyone said, oh, it was so amazing. But anyway, that man was Siaka. And Brandy and I just met him. We re-met him at the Godspeak Church in Thousand Oaks, California. And I said, you look familiar. And he's an actor. And so he probably was like, oh, you've probably seen me on TV. But he was so humble, and he just kind of shook his head, and we worked our way through it. And so Siaka is here with us on the radio today. I'm going to read his bio really quick. Siaka Massaquoi has been an actor in Hollywood for over 15 years. Oh, you know what? My bio cut off.
Oh, well,
Siaka,
thank God he's
you
here.
Want to read your own bio to us? Wow. Anyway, he's a 15-year acting veteran, and now he's a political activist. So, Siaka, welcome to the show.
Hi, Siaka.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Oh, that's amazing. Just so you know, with that speech that day,
yeah,
like I kind of like anytime I do a speech, I kind of little bullet points, write something out and then throw it away. And every time right before I go up, I pray to God to just have me speak from the heart every single time.
Amen.
You did the exact same thing that I did before I went up there.
That is so crazy. That's beautiful. It really shined through. I was like a little 2-year-old looking up at a famous Hollywood movie star, like, this guy is so awesome. How do I follow this?
This is awesome.
Yeah. So Brandy has so many questions for you. We're so excited to hear your story and everything you've been through.
Oh, man. Well, first of all, I watched you on Prager, your Prager video, and I was like, I loved how you talked about how you were raised. And I think a lot of times we're kind of going, gosh, how does the left see it this way? How does the left see it this way? How, kind of wringing our, hands and not understanding. But the way that you talked about the way you were raised and the kind of, I just want you to give us a little bit of that, where you started and how you had that paradigm shift from left to right.
Well, First of all, thank you guys for having me on. Like I'm excited to be on here and excited to like reconnect with you in this way so that we can grow, because I do believe like the ballot's only one part of this, and we are going to need media in order to truly minds and hearts of everyone. So this is an exciting step for all of us. Well, I grew up in Evanston, Illinois, which is right north of Chicago, and single parent home. My mom raised myself, and she's an immigrant. I'm first generation from West Africa, Liberia, West Africa, and she has her master's in nursing. Did the best she could to raise her kids. Got us from Chicago to like a great suburb that is Evanston, or was when I was there at least. And some of the things that when I look back on now and some of the frustrations, I look back on it, it's not outright like, oh, no, that's not true. Part of it is outright like things that I've learned was you never want to go to a rural area. You never want to go to the South. People in the South hate you. People in rural areas hate you. They don't get it.
These were things that you were taught by your mom or by society?
Well, this is more by the neighborhood, more by the culture in Chicago, in North Shore. And you get it from it's not just white people saying this, if anything, it's, I went to a junior high called like Martin Luther King Elementary School. And it was the magnet school for our city, meaning like they bring kids from all over the city to go to this one school. And I'll never forget, we'd always have these assemblies where we would stand up there and sing like, we shall overcome in front of our parents, where we're sitting there looking at a range of races right there singing this old, civil rights song, and they're all just smiling. So it's like, I look back at it as like they're indoctrinating us in this idea that we have to overcome something when we're already sitting in the win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sitting in there and we're all believing, no, we haven't gotten there yet. Of course, this is back. This wasn't when I was like 10 years old. I'm like, this is crazy. But those little things like that, those little pieces, little hits that come where you're told, especially from that perspective, you're told, hey, this world it's supposed to be inclusive, and racists are the bad guy. But then, like, if I date someone outside my race, they're like, oh, he doesn't date black girls, and now you have to face that. Yeah. And Kanye West talks about some of this stuff in his Esquire interview that he did after he came out as a Trump supporter. It's like there's terrorism in there, when you get to a point where even just for that, I never forget asking one of my Jewish friends, I'm like, hey, the older guy, I'm like, how can we move on to other issues and not, deal with this race, black and white thing if it's such a big deal? He's like, well, no, you don't get it. It's about trying to make everyone equal, and you just don't get it. I'm like, what about us killing each other? No, you understand slavery. And anytime I wanted to go further, it's like, well, you just don't get it. You just don't get it. You don't understand. And that was from 10 years old. I'm 41 right now, and I hear the same response from the same person.
Wow,
you don't have the authority to speak on your own life.
That's the thing that gets more frustrating as you get older, because when you're young, they tell you this is what your life is. When you're older and haven't experienced that, if you counter that, you don't get it. Your head's in the sand. You must hate your own race.
Right.
So when you're seeing that growing up, when you're seeing people like Ben Carson being called a certain thing, when you're seeing people that are on the left that happen to be, or on the right that happen to be black, get, just kind of just scolded down by the television shows, by other, mainstream black celebrities or politicians. And they're saying these things as if they're, they don't care about being that there's a skin color that they were born in, that they can't change no matter how much anyone else says anything. They say it as if that's what wants to happen. That's what you want to do. But you see those things, but at the same time, you're hearing certain things like, I always wanted a family, always wanted to be married. But like having that as like, that's what I want to do growing up was like, nah, that's not cool. Get your degree, figure out life. Don't do it stupid early. If you have a mistake, have an abortion, kill the baby. But
sounds
don't
like
say
feminism
kill.
Too. It's all aligned.
You know what I mean? So all that. I mean, I was in the, like, for example, in 92, when I was in junior high, my elementary teacher was a lesbian and her girlfriend was an English teacher. So we were progressives before it was a name. And they were in with all these different factors. And you're just like, well, okay, this is just the way it is. And one of the biggest thing that got me was after college, I went back to Chicago for like 10 months before I moved out to LA. And I just remember being so angry because Chicago just is so segregated to where, especially to where I grew up. And I'm like, well, this is a northern city. This is a city that they say is one of the great ones. Like, why is it? I'm dating an Italian girl. She said we got to break up because if her grandfather finds out, like things like that. Korean girl, same thing. It's like, but this is Chicago. Seeing how people live in the areas. When I say segregated, it's crazy how like there's people north, west side, south side, all these different areas. They won't go anywhere else, and that anger builds up because then you feel like you were lied to.
Right.
So you can't go right. So you can't go. All right, hey. Well, then let's think differently because that gets shouted down. So you have to sit in this mindset that if you don't buy in 100%, you're going to be angry. And if you do buy in 100%, you're going to be angry.
So it sounds like your whole life you've been backed into a corner.
Well, I would say not like, I didn't feel like trapped every moment because that would be unfair, But what we do, and I think it's part of what we're seeing with this censorship, what I feel like I grew up in was the left has done a great job of having people self-censor. So you don't even go in that direction anymore because it's a waste of time, right? People won't listen. They won't. So you have to kind of find the other way or just agree. So it doesn't feel like, like the same thing we're feeling now with these mandates where you're like, either I'm going to lose my job or take this thing. It's more like, well, this is just how we move. And it's why it starts when you start as a youth, it's easier for it to work as opposed to you and me now as adults being like, that means I have to negate everything I've ever met or known and gone through in order to accept certain things. You don't have that when you're 10. You're trying to learn, right? You're trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure it out.
No, when you go back to, you're seeing songs like We Shall Overcome, I always feel like, I think back to Martin Luther King in the 60s and all that was accomplished. And I feel like what's happening is what's been accomplished is being torn down, which breaks my heart. And when you have this fear, you're almost this undercurrent of fear of truly being just not racist, this undercurrent of this is who our people are. And if you don't move with our current, you're not one of us. Yeah. And that to me is so sad. And when I heard your interview, I was moved by how this was how you were brought up. Then you moved to a place like Hollywood and thought, okay, I want to pursue my dream. I want to be an actor. And this is where you saw, you had that paradigm shift, right?
Yeah, it's like if any place that would have the paradigm shift, you think it would happen here.
Yeah.
It went from like, middle of the road liberal to like, we're going all in, right?
Oh my gosh.
I think what happened, not even I think, what happened was I came here and, I wasn't at home. I was in safety, so I didn't have that same level of safety net to hide behind, right? If you have a over your head, you're able to just kind of let things go. And I was living at home before I left. And I came out here and things were going good for a little bit, but my demons, my struggle with alcohol at the time, then could live in fruition, so it could really impact how you just survive. So what started turning it was being literally poor. 2 different times on welfare, kicked out of my apartment because I was evicted by sheriffs, and just packed my car with just whatever I could. And you start to look around and what's quote unquote offered in order to help you in those situations, and how, going into those rooms, so embarrassed. I was personally embarrassed to sit down there because I'm like, I wasn't raised to have to go on welfare. And so you fill out the paperwork and you just see how it's more of a machine, and people are willing to do it. Just this one lady said to me, I got to get my shoes. Like, I'm like, what? Her high heels. It was crazy.
Gosh.
But I'm watching this going, this isn't really to help. This is to keep people connected to it, keep people held up. Then at the same time watching that, I'm watching like, the place that I lived at the time, across the street from this, elementary school, and the gang is, the open borders are making it worse over there. And I'm like, these are kids over here. And then you're not able to get any kind of real work. Watching all this real stuff happen, and I'm drinking and it's not helping. I'm like, all right, something's got to give. So, I went to recovery, went to AA, and everything started opening up because I was able to get out of my own way and truly let God in. And it was something that I know now my soul, my purpose was starving for, because I was just trying to figure it out on my own.
Did you find Jesus in AA, or were you already a Christian?
Well, my it's a crazy story this way, right? So my grandfather, was he was the main preacher of our church back in Liberia. And so our family was raised Baptist. So I got baptized here in America and everything at like 10 years old. But then as, I got older and where I grew up, and then I started learning and could spit back to you in my late teens, early 20s, all the reasons why the Bible and Christianity was full of crap, right?
Yeah.
So I went to college and you have that. So, but I always had this, as being an actor, I think definitely being someone who dreams outside of kind of the normal box. That level of spirituality and God never seemed too foreign to me. It just didn't match with the sensibilities of the side that I was on, right? So then as I got sober and I'm working this thing, it's about starting to figure out like who you are and why you work the way you do. Why do you respond to certain situations in this way to harm yourself? And as I started to figure that out and started doing the work on that, it just got me closer to the idea of truth. And then you work to the idea of truth, you want to search for more. And I just kept going further and further into this higher power that I saw now directly working in my life. And then the inception of the AA and where they were inspired from, then it just led me to the Bible, which led me to, like, in the last year, have read more of the Bible than I have in my entire life. And I come from a lineage of Christian, pastors. Yeah. So it's like how you get there is how you get there. But now being in this place, I'm looking at just looking at the blueprint, looking at how everything's lined up. And the other way just doesn't make sense. I see why. It from my own personal experience to the Bible, which is the blueprint to me, right? Yeah. And you see, well, they do this, the city's going to be crap. And it's like, oh, look, we're doing it right now. And I go, right? Oh my God. Like I was doing that to myself for so long in this kind of battle that I feel like the ideology on the left puts you in self. I can't say this. Someone shouldn't say this to me. I deserve more than what I work for. I.
Yeah.
There's never onus on like, what am I doing good for the community? What am I doing good for? Am I doing God's will? Am I doing what God has for me? Because that's been removed. So now we wait for LeBron James to be the person to tell certain communities okay, or Nancy Pelosi or Barack Obama, whoever they put up there now to be the ones where you go Demi Lovato.
Fauci.
You hear all these different things. These are people with their, trust me, I've seen some of these people close firsthand. They have their own flaws. And that's what I say. They have their own flaws, but yet we hold them up to the standard as if they were God. So now we're comfortable covering their faces and taking an experimental injection. It's wild. It's wild to me how far we have gone, but being in it at a young age, I see exactly how it's worked.
So when everything you've described, Siaka, is bondage, like bondage to people's opinion, bondage to a past, bondage to experience. And when you started to see the truth, and right away I just said, that's why the word says the truth sets us free, and we're having right now this massive invasion of truth, censorship, and all the things, and it's because the truth sets us free. And I always say, we're not in just a worldly battle, political battle. This is a spiritual battle where this is, how I always say, like, the stronghold of the enemy, the bondage is like the monster under the bed that grabs your ankle and pulls you down. And it's it's just constant. It's like, you can't do that. You can't say that. You can't be that. You can't break free. You can't break free. Exactly. And the truth sets us free. And the whole attack on truth is a whole attack on freedom from the core, right?
And you know what's crazy about that too? There are things that, because I looking back in history and stuff, I've seen like that 65 Civil Rights Act, and then it being co-opted by the Democratic Party was one of the biggest moves to where we are right now, because they use everything that we're seeing used in the mass public. They started with the Black community. If you wanted to see like the beta test group of what it looks like for the state to run the family, just go over there. And one of the things they always say when you say about bondage, for media and people perpetuating it, there's some stuff like you hear all the time. I like rock and roll. Black people aren't supposed to like that. I like hockey.
Oh my gosh. Who's keeping track of what Black people do and do not like? Not me. And by the way, how would you know? You either don't know because you're not Black, or you do know.
But that's the worst thing, because that's what would come from Black people. And it would be doubled down from everyone outside when you're like, oh, I can't believe you like it. You're Black. And you're like, wait, what?
Wow.
So it's like within the community that's being said that you should or shouldn't like certain things, because then that says what that you are or aren't black. I don't know. And then people in the community go, yeah, that's what it is. How come you like that? Because that's not what I was told from your own people that you're supposed to like. That's weird.
That's one of my favorite comments by the left is when basically someone who's maybe only part black is like, they're not black enough. Like they don't have authority to speak on black because of the percentage of black that they are.
Mm-hmm.
Man, don't find any reason for me not to be black enough. I'm literally African American for real.
Pretty black.
You're literally African.
Just so you guys know, this guy has the authority to speak. I've seen him. He is black. He's,
right.
He's 100% black.
I had this thing that went viral was like talking to his BLM kids, or debating, if you will.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You need to go back to Africa and learn your roots." I was like, "Do you want me to call my cousin or my uncle right now?"
Oh my goodness.
Well, that's supposed to be a slam. They're like trying to burn you, and you're like, "I'm literally."
I always try to say that, but I'm like, "What's your source?" He goes, the OG back in Africa in the motherland. I was like, "That's your source." Like, what are we talking about? Because even that, like, there's been, from just us as Americans, everything's been such a false commercialized presentation of reality that, like, I've had friends be like, "Oh, I like the African colors. I'm gonna wear them." I'm like, "What's the African colors?" There's multiple countries in that one continent. What is the African colors? Is it what the left has been selling us since the early 70s? And Jesse Jackson dancing around, and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer taking a knee.
I was just going to say the Nancy Pelosi thing. Yeah.
It's
like,
actually, it's just gross. It's gross. It's gross how they will, they it's like they're saying, we're so on your side that we're going to, it's actually, to me, it seems so condescending. Does it seem condescending to you constantly?
The high level of condescension. When you say that people don't have access to internet, so they can't get.
Oh my gosh.
And one of the things, because I'm not big, I'm not a believer in like, well, my fight is to make sure black people this or anything like that, because I look at it as we're Americans, and I bring out the point of view of what's going on in the black community, because they're 20 years ahead of where they want everyone else in every other demographic to be in this country. So like we have to see, like, this is an example. We keep going down this road, boom. We'll be shooting our boys would be, every another community be shooting themselves at 80% clip.
Yeah.
Our fatherless homes will be at an 80% clip across the board. If we keep going down this road, you want an example, look over there. And I believe from the history that I've been learning about just the founding of this country, if people understood that, black folks understood how, not just because of slavery or whatever they want to say, but people who have their fingers into the core here, that will help save us in this issue, because black and white are very important to this country and the history of this country. And the fight to change slavery throughout the world, a system that has been used since, people could gather together in groups. We're the only country that's shed blood to end it. Blood. There's nothing more important than shedding blood for anything you believe. So if we understood that, state like Indiana, the Hoosiers, everyone knows that, is named after a black preacher that was a working man guy that had these workers go over there, and now there you go. That's what we learned in church the other day, right?
Yeah. Did you see David Barton speak at Godspeak? Were you there for that one?
I did. Well, I did, but I've been taking his class for the last month almost now. So you go in there and you're like, now imagine if we knew that instead of slavery and then civil rights movement. Right. And that's it.
Wow. You know what? So, David Barton's class, that's a great thing for our listeners right now to look up David Barton's class on history and where our founding fathers were, who they were inspired by, were reverends of white and black, right? Yep. And how that's all being deconstructed in the schools to deconstruct the Constitution, to deconstruct what America has been, this beautiful light, not perfect, but a beacon of light in the world, to, again, just divide and conquer. I mean, this is what's happening all around us.
And that's old school saying too, like art of war tactic type stuff. It's been in every type of old literature since the beginning of time, divide and conquer. And it's what they're doing now, So, and I think I see this revival in God in this country, that it just like swells my heart. It really does. It really does.
So, Siaka, was there a distinct? We're going to wrap this up in the next couple of minutes, but was there a distinct moment where you turned into a patriot, or has it been just a gradual kind of God calling you into speaking up?
Well, there was a moment. I went to the first Save the Children rally march last summer, And it really hit me as I'm marching here. I'm like, I've never been to or heard of a march for kids at all, ever, for like the weakest among us. And it really bothered me because we have BLM, we have the Women's March, we have everything, even Patriots marches, but we never just children, babies. And it really messed with me that's where culturally we were so like disconnected from all of us agreeing we should just protect them first. Everything else we can work on, but we just protect them no matter what. And I'm in there and I'm just feeling this fire and this passion. And I see Major Williams, who ran for governor out here during the recall. And I saw him at an event. I go, hey, Major, what's up? Hey, I love what you have to say. And then I started telling him, I'm like, look, my acting's been going great. I'll get quick. I was like, my acting's been going great, but I feel like I need to speak out. What should I do? He's like, well, 10 years ago, I was in the industry. 10 years ago, my wife and I decided to do something different. We prayed. 6 months later, we made a decision. So you have to do it for yourself. Like, okay. That night, I'm walking my dog, and I've just been thinking about it. I look up, there's a full moon, and something in my chest just said yes.
Brother, we got to have you on next week. We're doing this again right now because there's too much here. Way too much here.
Tell people where to follow you real quick, and we're going to continue this story next week.
Yes, follow me at on Instagram at Siaka_Massaquoi. You can follow me at We the People with Siaka Massaquoi on Telegram. Awesome. I just got on what is it, TikTok, so we'll see how much I use that, but it's Siaka too.
We'll post all this on our show too, since your name is not that simple to spell.
Yeah, we're excited.
All right, we'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
It's Dylan's KC Barbecue at 4 Valley locations. Our sports bar in Arrowhead is packed with TVs for the ultimate sports fan. Our Wildlife World Zoo location will have you on the edge of your seat, dining right next to our 60,000-gallon shark tank. Dylan's Bayou at Pleasant Harbor has never-ending sunsets, beautiful people, and live music every weekend. And our newest location, Western Trails Ranch, is 12 acres of rodeo fun and live outdoor concerts for the entire family. It's Dylan's KC Barbecue, where we're elite, unique, and memorable.